And Jamie, you can now be heard. How is everybody? Clarissa. Hi. Clarissa, thank you so much for the constant support. I super appreciate you. 10 months is insane. It's insane. Let's jump over to storytelling. And yes, if anyone's curious, the song currently playing is going to be our new starting soon song, as well as our Be Our Back song. It is the channel theme called Storyteller by Gelby. The link is down below if you want to check out Gelby's stuff. Super cool artist. Make sure to go check them out. I'm going to jump over to storytelling. Oh my god, Oppo, thank you! 10 months. You guys are insane. I believe that you and Flurissa are some of the first people to follow, to subscribe to me, and the fact that you guys continue to sub it means the world. It really does. I really appreciate you guys. Now wait for the sound. I'm having internet connection issues, which is super fun and super cool and exactly what I want to be happening right now.
Yeah, always, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Super convenient.
Jamie, you went from perfect audio to Mr. Roboto in 5 seconds.
Oh, I know what's wrong. Oh no. Okay, sorry, I'll be right back.
Literally, we were practicing right before stream.
Input output can be confusing. How's that sound?
No, still Mr. Roboto. Let's go. You're glad he subscribed. Also, is Jamie crunchy as fuck to anybody else? Yeah, no, Jamie's crunchy. Say something else.
How's that sound, everyone? It should be
better
now.
So much better.
I said input output is confusing, and then actually put it in wrong again.
Amazing. Founding subscriber Hasher1, let's go. Oh, I see what happened. There we go. Oh, that reminds me, speaking of Hasher, there are a couple new emotes. Some of them are old ones that I took off the roster because I just didn't have room for them, but because of the subathon, we have a bunch of slots open at the moment. So there is a couple new animated emotes. Hacker slasher, exactly. So feel free to use those emotes tonight, guys. So we're going to start the evening off. This is going to be our first reading of Brian Jack's Redwall. We were just discussing this right before stream because we wanted to make sure that we were saying his name properly. But it's spelled Jacqueus. So you think it'd be Jacques? Because it's very French, but he wants to be called Jack. Yeah.
Yeah, he prefers it pronounced Jax.
Why didn't Glimmer Failure work? Hello?
In case anyone thought that we were absolutely unable to pronounce French words, I promise that's not the case. It is definitely a preference by the author. We are reading Redwall by Brian Jax.
Not how you pronounce Jax in French either, baby. Listen.
No, there's an interview. He said when he moved to America, a lot of people wanted to pronounce it JQs. So it's baby's not doing French bad. It's referencing what Mr. Jackson said. Yeah. Should question us how to properly pronounce it. Right? I don't know, is Jax his preference or is it actually pronounced Jax? And we're the fools. I have no idea.
Why isn't this working? Give me 1 second. I'm going to make sure, Mystic, that we got this working for you. Yes, and mix it up because it's not working. It's being
And there's a little bit of about the author at the beginning of the book.
Isn't it Jacquees?
Get out of here!
Get out of here!
What are you doing? Get out of here! Just start throwing rocks at Oppo.
Baby, you forgot to lock the library again.
I did.
The archive is open.
I know. They all came
Go to
in.
breach.
Go to
Go to
breach.
breach. It's an angel demon running rampant around these parts.
Okay, let's see if we can get Glimmer Failure working now. Test command.
Oh, are your tits giving you a hard time?
Yeah, I can't get Glimmer.
Jackies!
Now, literally in my get out of here. Peppermint. Oh, none of my redeems are working.
The regular human Annie that lives in your walls is yelling things into the mic.
I'm gonna quickly go ahead and fix the. I don't know what to do. Mix It Up has never failed me like this before.
What does Mix It Up do again?
It's what changes my colors.
Oh, they're not working.
Yeah.
I guess you'll just have to be Slime Baby after all.
There we go. There we go. It's because I had something else open. And I'll also put Peppermint Baby back on. I'm doing it now. Everything's working. There we go. There we go. Hello.
Let's make you Christmas for the sake of it.
Girl, look at that body. I work out. Girl, look at that body. Girl, look at that body. Girl, look at that body. Look at that body.
Oh God. Yeah, I have to work out. So why don't you start off the story, Jamie, while I do push-ups and sit-ups?
I'm happy to. We'll start with a little about the book. So listen to me, friends. We of Redwall are a tough old lot to kill off. Welcome to Redwall Abbey. Inside its enormous doors, mice live in peace, helping those in need and throwing epic feasts for the great and the good of Mossflower Woods. But outside, a grave threat is gathering. An army of evil rats led by a vicious, one-eyed warlord is on its way. Matthias is just one little mouse, but he knows it'll take more than stones and mouse-sized arrows to keep the rats at bay. Enlisting the help of a military hare, wild sparrows, and argumentative stoats, Matthias sets out to defend his freedom, his friends, and the abbey he calls home. Backstory: learn how to make Redwall Abbey pudding, it says. It does not provide a recipe for Redwall Abbey pudding, but
Jamie,
it does
I think
say
that your gain has been turned back up.
Oh gosh. Oh no. How's that, folks?
So much better.
Oh,
I do want to hear this recipe. Should we post the recipe in the Discord?
Yeah, if we can find it. A little bit about the author. Brian Jacks was born in Liverpool in 1939. His first name is actually James, but because his father and one of his brothers were also called James, he was known as Brian. Our dads did that. Mm-hmm. I say our dads. Our dad has a twin brother. Our dad. We have one dad. As a child, he loved to read adventure stories. His favorite books were like King Solomon's Mines by H. Rider Haggard, Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, and The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. He left school aged 15 to seek adventure as a merchant sailor, and many of the colorful characters he met on his voyages ended up appearing in the Redwall books in mouse form. When he returned to Liverpool, he held a variety of jobs. One was delivering milk to the Royal School for the Blind in Wavertree. He made friends with many of the children there and enjoyed reading books to them and telling them stories of his own. One of these stories was the Tale of Redwall. Encouraged by how much the children enjoyed it, he began to write his stories down. The first Redwall book was started as an 800-page manuscript, which was considered very long for a children's book. Brian went on to write 35 books, many of them about the mythical world of Redwall and all its inhabitants. He loved reading these stories aloud to children. He died in 2011, aged 71. Have a look at the Redwall website to find out more information about Brian Jacks and the Redwall series. And it provides a little link, which if you guys like, we can drop that link in chat.
Heck yeah. Also, guys, what's really cool is near the end of this book, so we're going to read the first book, and then we're going to have a watch party in the Discord where we're going to watch the Canadian animation for Redwall.
That's right.
So there's an old Canadian animation. I believe we looked it up. It was in the 90s that it was dropped, or the 80s?
or early 2000s. It was during that time in animation in general, but definitely in Canadian animation, where they just loved animating mice. We're gonna get more facts for you because a lot of this is just off the dome.
Yeah.
So we'll have an episode and we can tell you, or like we'll watch a few episodes and we can tell you more about like how it was made. And I work in Canadian animation, so it'll be kind of fun to talk about like how this kind of thing even came to exist, because it's pretty special for what it is.
Yeah. Clarissa says 35 books about a red wall. It's just all the pages about how the red paint is drying on the wall. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like going to the Green Diamond and or going to Diamond City and they're calling it the Green Jewel, and you're like, why do they call it that? And it's because they painted green.
Yeah, that's it.
Fallout
it's just
reference. Yeah,
throwing out the Fallout reference as fast as possible. You gotta sneak it in.
Gotta sneak it
Hello,
in.
Lord Everwalk. I realized I haven't been doing any shout outs. Like a good
Let's
streamer.
get those shout outs going.
Yeah. Everwalk gets in here and I'm like,
you
I
get your
gotta do the
shout-outs going.
shout out.
I have a rhyme from beneath the Great Hall Tapestry for you guys. Who says that I am dead? Knows not at all. I am, that is. And it's I dash am, that is, which is important. Two mice within Redwall. The warrior sleeps twixt hall and cavern hole. I am, that is. Take on my mighty role. Look for the sword. In moonlight streaming forth. At night when day's first hour reflects the north. From o'er the threshold. Seek and you will see. I am, that is. My sword will wield for me.
Who says I'm dead? Me, loads gun. You will leave that mouse
gun.
alone. I can read this other little expert here. Or did you already read this? It was the start of the summer of the late rose.
No, go for it.
All right. Moss flower country, shimmering gently in a peaceful haze, bathing delicately in each dew-laden dawn, blossoming through the high sunny noontides, languishing at each crimson-tinted twilight, the heralded and soft darkness of June nights. Redwall stood four square along the marches of the old south border, flanked on two sides by mossflower woods. Shaded depths, the older half of the Abbey overlooked undulating sweeps of the meadowland.
Undulating.
Sorry, you're right, undulating.
No worries.
Its ancient gate facing the long, dusty roads of the western perimeter. From above, it resembled some fabulous dusky jewel, fallen between a green mantle of light silk and dark velvet. The first mice had built the Abbey of red sandstone quarried from pits many miles away from the in the northeast. The Abbey building was covered across the south face by that type of ivy known as Virginia creeper. The onset of autumn would turn the leaves into a cape of fiery hue, thus adding further glory to the name and legend of the Redwall Abbey. Bum bum bum. I'm gonna check something really
this
quick.
is a little bit funny for me, Fabi, which and Annie is gonna hate me for this, and I have to figure out how to make it stop. But YouTube's like, I'm wise to you and your firewall, your ad blocks, and we're getting rid of your ad blocks, so you're not allowed to watch YouTube videos. So I had to allow YouTube through my ad block, and I need to find a new ad block that is a little bit smarter. I'm gonna get Annie to help me with this. But the second you stopped reading that, it kicked off an ad, and it was like, I was made for loving you, baby. You were made for loving me.
You were made for loving me.
The jump scare of that, and I thought it was very funny. It's a totally different vibe.
Also, thank you for lurking, Clarissa. We'll see you soon. We'll see you soon.
See you soon, Clarissa.
Enjoy your nap by the fire. Why don't we just jump right into the first chapter?
Yeah, would you like to kick us off, Phoebe?
Absolutely. So, book 1, The Wall. Let's get that book ambiance in here. Mateus cut a comical little figure as he walloped his way along the cloisters or cloisters by Pokemon ass. With his large sandals flip-flopping.
Cloisters.
Cloisters, okay. I was like, no, that
Yeah.
couldn't be. That couldn't be. My Pokemon ass is wrong. No, it's Cloysters. And his large sandals flip-flopping, and his tail peeping beneath the baggy folds of an oversized novice habit. He paused to gaze upwards at the cloudless blue sky, and tripped over the enormous sandals. Hazelnuts scattered out upon the grass from the rush basket he was carrying. Unable to stop, he went tumbling cowl over tail. Bump. The mouse squeaked in dismay. He rubbed tenderly at his damp, snub nose, while slowly taking stock of where he had landed, directly at the feet of Abbot Mortimer. Immediately, Matthias scrambled about on all fours, hastily trying to stuff nuts back into this basket as he muttered clumsy apologies, avoiding the stern gaze of his elder. Sorry, Father Abbot, I tripped. You see, trod on my Abbot, Father Habit, oh dear, I mean, the Father Abbot blinked solemnly over the top of his glasses. Matthias again. What a young buffoon of a mouse. Only the other day he had signed old brother
Methuselah.
Methuselah, thank you, Whiskers.
Yeah, no worries.
While lighting candles, and he singed them, not signed them. The elder's stern expression softened. He watched the little novice rolling around on the grass, grappling with the large armfuls of smooth hazelnuts, which constantly seemed to escape his grasp, shaking his old gray head, yet trying to hide a smile. Abbot Mortimer bent and helped to gather up the fallen nuts.
Would you like me to go from here?
Sure.
Oh, Matthias, Matthias, my son, he said wearily, when will you learn to take life slower, to walk with dignity and humility? How can you ever hope to be accepted as a mouse of Redwall, when you are always dashing about, grinning from whisker to tail like a mad rabbit? Matthias, I keep wanting to pronounce it Matthias, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Or no, that is it, yes. Matthias tossed the last hazelnut into the basket and stood awkwardly, shuffling his large sandals in the grass. How could he say aloud what was in his heart? The abbot put his paw around the young mouse's shoulders, sensing his secret yearnings, for he had ruled Redwall wisely over a great number of years and gained much experience of mouse life. He smiled down at his young charge and spoke kindly to him. Come with me, Matthias. It is time we walked together. A curious thrush perching in a gnarled pear tree. Is that thrush? Yeah. Perching in a gnarled pear tree, watched the two figures make their way at a sedate pace in the direction of the great hall. One clad in the dark greenery brown of the order, the other garbed in the lighter green of a novice. They conversed earnestly in low tones. Thinking what a clever bird he was, the thrush swooped down on the basket that had been left behind. Twisters! The basket contained only hard nuts, locked tight within their shells. Feigning lack of interest, lest any other bird been witness to a silly mistake, he began jauntily whisking a few bars of his melodious summer song, strolling nonchalantly over to the cloister walls in search of snails. It was cool inside the great hall. Sunlight flooded down in slanting rainbow-hued shafts from the high, narrow stained glass windows. A million-colored dust motes danced and swirled as the two mice trod the ancient stone floor. The Father Abbot halted in front of the wall on which hung a long tapestry. This was the pride and joy of Redwall. The oldest part had been woven by the founders of the Abbey, but each successive generation had added to it. Thus the tapestry was not only a priceless treasure, it was also a magnificent chronicle of early Redwall history. Would you like to take it from there, Phoebe? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I was like,
should
or did you
switch.
get to an end of the page, or?
No.
Okay, yeah, I can take it from here. The abbot studied the wonderment of Matthias's eyes as he asked him a question, the answer to which the wise mouse already knew. What are you looking at, my son? Matthias pointed to the figure woven into the tapestry. It was a heroic-looking mouse, the fearless smile on his handsome face. Clad in armor, he leaned casually on an impressive sword, while behind him foxes, wildcats, and vermin fled in terror. The young mouse gazed in admiration. "Oh, Father Abbot," he said, "if only I could be like Martin the warrior. He was the bravest, most courageous mouse that has ever lived." The abbot sat down slowly on the cool stone floor, resting his back against the wall. "Listen to what I say, Matthias. You have been like a son to me, ever since you came to our gates as an orphaned woodland mouse, begging to be taken in. Come, sit by me, and I will try to explain to you what our order is all about. We are mice of peace. Oh, I know that Martin was a warrior mouse, but those were wild days when strength was needed, the strength of a champion such as Martin. He arrived here in the deep winter, when the founders were under attack from many foxes, vermin, and great wildcats. So fierce a fighter was Martin that he faced the enemy single pod, driving them mercilessly far from the moss flower. During the rout, Martin fought a great battle against overwhelming odds. He emerged victorious after slaying the wildcat with his ancient sword, which became famous throughout the land. But in the last bloody combat, Martin was seriously wounded. He lay injured in the snow until the mice found him. They brought him back to the Abbey and cared for his hurts until he regained his strength. Then, something seemed to come over him. He was transformed by what could only be called a mouse miracle. Martin forsook the way of the warrior and hung up his sword. That was when our order found its true vocation. All the mice took a solemn vow never to harm another living creature, unless it was an enemy that sought to harm our order by violence. Then vowed to heal the sick, care for the injured, and give aid to the wretched and impoverished. So was it written, and so has it been through all the ages of mousekind since. Today, we are deeply honored and highly respected society. Anywhere we go, even far beyond Mossflower, we are treated with courtesy by all creatures. Even predators will not harm a mouse who wears that habit of our order. They know he or she is one who will heal and give aid. It is an unwritten law that Redwall mice can go anywhere, through any territory, and pass unharmed. At all times we must live up to this. It is our way, our very life. As the abbot spoke, so his voice increased in volume and solemnly. Matthias sat under his stern gaze, completely humbled. Abbot Mortimer stood and put a wrinkled old paw lightly on the small head, right between the velvety ears, now drooping with shame. Once more the abbot's heart softened towards the little mouse. Poor Matthias. Alas, for your ambitions. The day of the warrior is gone, my son. We live in peaceful times. Thank heaven, and you need only think of obeying me, your abbot, and doing as you are bidden. In time to come, when I am long gone to my rest, you will think back to this day and bless my memory, for then you will be a true member of Redwall. Come now, my young friend, cheer up. It is the summer of the late rose, where there are many, many days of warm sun ahead of us. Go back and get your basket of hazelnuts. Tonight we have a great feast to celebrate. My golden jubilee as abbot. When you've taken the nuts to the kitchen, I have a special task for you. Yes, indeed. I need some fine fish for the table. Get your rod and line. Tell Brother Alf that he is to take you fishing in the small boat. That's what young mice like doing, isn't it? Who knows? You may land a fine trout or some sticklebacks. Run along now, young one. Happiness filled Matthias from tail to whisker as he bobbed a quick bow to his superior and shuffled off, smiling benignly. The abbot watched him go. Little rascal. He must have a word with the almoner and see if some sandals could be found that were the right fit for Matthias. Small wonder the poor mouse kept tripping up. And now we're on to chapter 2. Jamie, would you like to start us off?
Yeah. The high, warm sun shone down on the Cluny of the Scourge. Cluny was coming. He was big and tough, an evil rat with ragged fur and curved, jagged teeth. He wore a black eye patch. His eye had been torn out in battle with a pike. I am so sorry, one moment.
Hey, yo!
He's
He's coming?
He's coming. Clearly is coming, and so is the Scotiabank ad. And I need this fixed. So sorry for that, guys.
He's coming.
All right, where were we? Clerney was coming. He was big and tough, an evil rat with ragged fur and curved, jagged teeth. He wore a black eye patch. His eye had been torn out in battle with a pike. Cluny had lost an eye. The pike had lost its life. Some said that Cluny was a Portuguese rat. Others said he came from the jungles far across the wide oceans. Nobody knew for sure. Cluny was a bilge rat, the biggest... I lost my place instantly. Sorry about that. Cluny was a bilge rat, the biggest, most savage rodent that had ever jumped from ship to shore. He was black with gray and pink scars all over his huge, sleek body, from the tip of his wet nose up past his green and yellow slinted eye, across both his mean, tattered ears, down the length of his heavy, vermin-ridden back, to the enormous whip-like tail which had earned him his title, Cluny of the Scourge. Now he rode on the back of a hay wagon with his 500 followers, a mighty army of rats, sewer rats, tavern rats, water rats, dockside rats. Cluny's army fearing, yet following him. Redtooth, his second in command, carried a long pole. That was Cluny's personal standard, and the skull of a ferret was fixed at its top. Cluny had killed the ferret. He feared no living thing. Wild-eyed with terror of rat smell in his nostrils, the horse plunged ahead without any driver. Where the hay cart was taking him was of no little concern to Cluny. Straight on the panicked horse galloped, past the milestone lodged in the earth at the roadside, heedless of the letters graven in the stone. Redwall Abbey, 15 miles. Cluny spat over the edge of the cart at two young rabbits playing in a field. Tasty little things. A pity the cart hadn't stopped yet, he thought. The high warm sun shone down on Cluny the Scourge. Cluny was the god of war. Cluny was coming nearer.
Right, chapter 3. Beneath the great hall of Redwall, candles burned bright in their sconces. It was the cavern hole of the mice. What a night it was going to be. Between them, Matthias and Brother Elf had caught and landed a fully grown grayling. They had fought and played the big fish for nearly 2 hours, finally wading into the shallows and dragging it to the bank. It was nearly 2 pounds in weight, a tribute to Brother Elf's angling skills combined with the youthful muscles of Matthias and their joint enthusiasm. Constant the Badger had to be called, gripping the fish in her strong jaws. She followed the 2 mice to the Abbey kitchen and delivered the catch to them. Then she made her farewells. They would see her in the Jubilee feast that evening, along with lots of other Mossflower residents who had been invited to share in the festivities. Brother Elf and Matthias stood proudly beside their catch amidst the culinary hustle and bustle, until they were noticed by Friar Hugo. Busy as he was, the enormous fat Hugo, who would have no other title but that of friar, stopped what he was doing, wiping the perspiration from his brow. Hey, that got me. I was like, ow! Thank you for the check-in. Hello, lonely. Come on in. Come rest up by the fire.
I gotta say though, the character design of a friar, to me, gotta be fat.
Gotta be fat. They do. They do.
I don't want to see your friar any other way.
Yeah, Disney's ruined that for me. They have to be a fat little vole. They
Yeah,
gotta be.
Gotta be.
The perspiration from his brow with a dandelion, which he held with his tail. He waddled about, inspecting the fish. Nice shiny scales, bright eyes, beautifully fresh. Friar Hugo smiled so joyfully that his face disappeared amid the deep dimples. He shook Elf by the paw and clapped Matthias heartily on the back as he called out between chuckles, "Bring the white gooseberry wine! Fetch me rosemary, thyme, beech nuts, and honey, quickly! And now, friends, now!" He squeaked, waving the dandelion wildly with his tail. "I, Hugo, will create grayling a la Redwall. That will melt in the mouth for mice. Fresh cream. I need lots of fresh cream. Bring me some mint leaves, too." They had left Friar Hugo ranting on, delirious in his joy, as they both went off to bathe and clean up, combing whiskers, curling tails, shining noses, and the 100 and other grooming tasks that Redwall mice always performed in preparation for an epic feast. The rafting of Cavern Hole rang to the excited buzz and laughter of the assembling creatures. Hedgehogs, moles, squirrels, woodland creatures and mice of all kinds, field mice, hedge mice, dormice, even a family of poor little church mice, kindly helpers scurrying about, making everybody welcome. "Hello there, Mrs. Church Mouse. Sit the children down. I'll get them some raspberry cordial. Why,
Cordial.
Mr. Bankful." Cordial, thank you. "Mr. Bankful, so nice to see you. How's the back? Better now? Good. Here, try a drop of peach and elderberry brandy." Matthias' young head was in a whirl. He could not remember being so happy in all his life. Winifred, the otter, nudged him. "I say, Matthias, where's this giant grayling that you and the old elf caught? By the claw. I wish I could have could land a beauty like that. Nearly a 2-pounder, wasn't it?" Matthias swelled with pride. Such praise, and from the champion fisher himself. Herself, an otter. Tim and Tess, the twin church mouse babes, felt Matthias's strong arm muscles and giggled aloud in admiration. He helped to serve them 2 portions of apple and mint ice cream. Such nice little twins. Was it only 3 months ago that he had helped Sister Stephanie to get them over tail rickets? My, how they had grown. Abbot Mortimer sat in his carved willow chair, beaming thanks as one by one the new arrivals laid their simple homemade gifts at his feet. An acorn cup from a squirrel, fishbone combs from the otter, mossy bark sandals made by the moles, and many, many more fine presents, too numerous to mention. The abbot shook his head in amazement. Even more guests were arriving. He beckoned Friar Hugo to his side, and whispered conference was held. Matthias could only hear snatches of the conversation. "Don't worry, Father Abbot. There'll be enough for all. How are the cellar stocks, Hugo?" "Enough to flood the Abbey pond, Father. And nuts? We must not run short of nuts. You name them, we've got them. Even candied chestnuts and acorn crunch. We could feed the district for a year. Dairy products? Oh, that. I've got cheddar cheese. And 4 badgers couldn't roll. Plus 10 other varieties." Good. Thank you, Hugo. "Oh, you must thank Elf and young Matthias for that magnificent fish. What fine anglers they are. There is enough to keep the entire abbey going for a week. Excellent mice, well done." Matthias blushed and to his tail's end. "Do you want to take
here?
Yeah.
The otters! The otters! A loud, jolly cry went up as 3 otters in clown costumes came bounding in. Such acrobatics. They tumbled, balanced, and gyrated, cavorting comically across the laden tabletops without upsetting as much as a single saltuna. They ended up hanging from the rafters by a strand of ivy to wild applause. Ambrose Spike, the hedgehog, did his party piece. He amazed everyone with his feasts of legerdemain Eggs were taken from a squirrel ear. A young mouse's tail stood up and danced like a snake. The incredible vanishing conquer trick was performed in front of a group of little harvest mice who kept squeaking, "He's got it hidden in his prickles." But had he? Ambrose made a few mysterious passes and produced the conquer straight out of the mouth of an awe-struck infant mouse. Was it magic? Of course it was. All activities ceased as the great Joseph Bell tolled out 8 o'clock from the Abbey belfry. Silently, all the creatures filed to their allotted places. They stood reverently, behind the seats with heads lowered. Abbot Mortimer rose and solemnly spewed his paws awide, encompassing the festival board. He said the grace. "Fur and whisker, tooth and claw, all who enter by our door, nuts and herbs, leaves and fruits, berries, tubers, plants and roots, silver fish whose life we take, only for a meal to make." This was followed by a loud and grateful Amen. There was a mass cluttering of chairs and scraping of forms as everyone was seated. Matthias found himself next to Tim and Tess on one paw, and Cornflower Fieldmouse on the other. Cornflower was a quiet young mouse, but undoubtedly very pretty. She had the longest eyelashes Matthias had ever seen, the brightest eyes, the softest fur, the whitest teeth. Matthias fumbled with a piece of celery. He turned to see if the twins were coping adequately. You could never tell with these baby church mice. Brother Alf remarked that Friar Hugo had excelled himself, of course, after what was brought to the table. Tender freshwater shrimp garnished with cream and rose leaves, deviled barley pearls and acorn puree, apple and carrot chews, marinated cabbage stalks steeped in creamed white turnip and nutmeg. With a chorus of oohs and ahs, greeted the arrival of 6 mice pushing a big trolley. It was the grayling, wreaths of aromatic steamed It happened again. I'll
Have you
be right
lost your
back.
place? Oh, the
No,
ads.
the ads. Wow, they are playing a lot on this video. A chorus of oohs and ahs greeted the arrival of 6 mice pushing a big trolley. It was the grayling. Wreaths of aromatic steam drifted around cavern hole. It had been baked to perfection. Friar Hugo entered with a slight swagger added to his ungainly waddle. He swept off his chef's cap with his tail and announced in a somewhat pompous squeak, "Lord Abbot, honored guests from Mossflower area and members of the Abbey, I wish to present my piece de resistance." Oh, get on with it, Hugo. After some icy staring about to detect the culprit, and several smothered snickers from around the room, the little faint friar puffed himself up once more and declared firmly, "Grayling a la Redwall." Polite but eager applause rippled around as Hugo sliced the fish and placed the first steaming portion onto a platter. With subtle dignity, he presented it to the abbot, who thanked him graciously. All eyes were on Father Abbot. He took a dainty fork loaded precariously with steaming fish. Carefully, he transferred it from plate to mouth, chewing delicately. He turned his eyes upward and closed them, whiskers a twitch, jaws working steadily, munching away, his curled up tail holding a napkin which neatly wiped his mouth. The abbot's eyes reopened. He beamed like the midsummer morn. "Quite wonderfully, perfectly exquisite, Friar Hugo. You truly are my champion chef. Please serve our guests your masterwork." Any further speech was drowned by hearty cheers.
He's so cute.
He's so cute.
So cute. I love him. I got this one. This is a real small chapter.
Here, I can grab it.
We got a hydrate from Goat Scribble.
Ooh, let's do it.
It's not a waterfall, so you don't have to if you don't want to, but if you'd like to join me.
I'll have a little sippy. I will have a little sippy.
Thank you, Seth.
Clunny was in a foul temper. He snarled viciously.
Is it Clunny or is it Clooney?
We can find out because otherwise I'm going to pronounce it wrong forever.
Yeah.
Hey guys, what do you think? It's Cluny. I think it's Clooney. Let's find out while you have your hydrate.
Yeah. Ooh. Taking my sips. Get my
Based on the
sips in.
cartoon,
Sorry to interrupt you. I just realized that. I'm like, are you sure it's Clooney? Are you?
yeah, it's Clooney. It's
Okay.
according to the cartoon, anyways. It's definitely Clooney.
Okay.
Okay, great. Good to know. Clooney was in a foul temper. He snarled viciously. The horse had stopped from sheer exhaustion. He hadn't wanted that. Some inner devil persuaded him that he had not yet reached his destination. Clooney's one eye slitted evilly. From the depths of the hay cart, the rodents of the warlord's army watched their master. They knew him well enough to stay clear of him in this present mood. He was violent, unpredictable. Skullface, Clooney snapped. There was a rustle in the hay. A villainous head popped up. Hi, Chief. Do you want me? Clooney's powerful tail shot out and dragged the unfortunate forward. Skullface cringed as sharp, dirty claws dug into his fur. Clooney nodded at the horse. Jump on that thing's back, Sharpish. Give it a good bite. That'll get the lazy brute moving again. Skullface swallowed nervously and licked his dry lips. But, Chief, it might bite me back. Swish, crack. Clooney wielded his mighty tail as if it were a bullwhip. His victim screamed aloud with pain as the scourge lashed him with thin, bony back. Mutiny! Insubordination! Clooney roared. By the teeth of hell, I'll flay you into mangy doll rags. Skullface scurried over onto the driver's seat, yelling with pain. No more! Don't whip me, Chief! Look, I'm gonna do it! Hold tight to the rigging back there, Clooney shouted to his horde. Skullface performed a frantic leap. He landed on the horse's back. The terrified animal did not wait for the rat to bite. As soon as he felt the loathsome scratching weight descend on his exposed haunches, it gave a loud, panicked whinny and bucked. Spurred on by the energy of fright, it carried off like a runaway juggernaut. Skullface had time for one agonized scream before he fell. The iron-shod cartwheels rolled over him. He lay in a red mist of death, the life ebbing from his broken body. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was the sneering visage of Clooney the Scourge roaring from the jolting backboard. Tell the devil Clooney sent you, Skullface! They were on the move again. Clooney was getting nearer.
Hello, D. Cruz. Welcome in. We're doing good. We're reading Redwall.
D. Cruz.
Yeah, we're reading Redwall. So for Tall Tale, every so often we'll do readings. So every other week from now until we're finished the first book, we're going to be reading the first Redwall book. And then we will probably, thank you, watch the cartoon. I don't know if we'll do the cartoon here or if we'll do it on Discord. We're still kind of like up in the wind about that. But we'll have more information for you guys later.
Phoebe, are you able to pull images up on screen at all?
Oh, yes.
And just sort of leave them there. Can you pull up a PNG? It would be nice if we put up the cover of the book.
You're so right. You're so right. You're so cute in your little chair. Look at you.
I feel cozy. I feel lovely. I think it would help paint a picture. Do you want me to find you a cover? Or
yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
I got a couple of options for you that I think are nice covers that they've done. This one makes Matthias look adorable as fuck. The first one I'm going to send you, and the second one makes Matthias look cool.
Let's do the cute one.
Both are valid options. Oh my god,
look at him.
I like how much they're doing the feast. I want to eat all that food. I love the descriptions of food. That's huge. And the other one is I love how much they talk about like how swole he is. They're like, don't forget this mouse, muscles.
He's super small and is constantly tripping over himself, but also so many muscles.
He's big, he's buff, he's tough, and don't you forget it for a moment. So those are two covers, whichever one feels better to you.
We're putting up the cutie one because he's a cutie.
He just looks so small. He looks so small in that one.
Image.
Something very important to me, chat, whenever I read a book, is the book has to have really good fan art. This is important. It's not necessary, but the more art people draw of a book, and the more I feel like I can understand it. I'm a very visual person.
And there's
Redwall
so
has
much
no shortage of that. Lots of beautiful artwork of Redwall. So if you're ever like, who's that character? I don't understand. You might be able to find fan art or a picture of them from the cartoon.
You don't get to be seen, Jamie. Only Redwall now.
Sonny, did someone say drawings and pictures and such?
Yes. Also, welcome in Sunny Sketches.
Hello, Sonny.
We can put it,
Yeah, right in the middle, maybe, of us.
yeah, I don't want to cover up the fire. There we go.
Just a little bit of a, maybe a bit bigger, Fabi. You can put it behind me if you like.
I think right here is good. Right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We wanted to show off some Redwall art. I'm actually working on some Redwall art. I'm gonna make a starting soon for our Redwall series.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I think that you should make me a slime bird, Fabi. I was gonna mention
I was
that.
thinking that too. I didn't know if
The
I should
art
make
that
you
you
a
sent.
slime bird or if I should just stick feathers in you.
I don't know, but I think, like the sparrows.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
it.
that I'd
I
make
was
a
I
good
was thinking
sparrow.
the same thing, but again, I didn't know if I should have
Mhm.
you just have like sparrow feathers in you, or if I should make you into the shape of a sparrow. I was
Yeah.
back and forth on it. We're gonna start
do you wanna
chapter
kick us off
5.
on chapter 5?
Yeah, I was thinking the
I'm
same
just gonna be
thing.
right back. I'm grabbing a tissue. I can still hear you though. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Down in the covered hold, the great beast had slackened off. So had a lot of belts. Redwall mice and their guests sat back replete. There were still great quantities of food uneaten. The Abbot Mortimer whispered a faint in Friar Hugo's ear. Friar, I want you to pack up a large sack with food, hazelnuts, cheese, bread, cakes, anything you see fit. Give it to the Miss Church Mouse, as secretly as you can without attracting attention. Poverty is an ugly specter when it's a mousewife. When a mousewife has as many mouths to feed as she does. Oh, and be sure her husband doesn't suspect that you are doing. John Churchmouse may be poor, but he is so very proud. I fear he might not accept charitable gifts. Ewan nodded knowingly and waddled off to do the abbot's bidding. Cornflower and Matthias had become quite friendly. They were young mice of the same age. Though their temperaments were different, they found something in common. An interest in Tim and Tess, the twin church mice. They had passed a pleasant evening, joking and playing games with the little creatures. Tess had clambered onto Matthias's lap and fallen asleep, whereupon baby Tim did likewise in the velvety fur of Cornflower. She smiled at Matthias as she stroked Tim's small head. Ah, bless their little paws. Don't they look peaceful? Matthias nodded in agreement. Colin Vole tittered aloud and remarked rather foolishly, "Oh, would you look at Matthias and Cornflower there? A nursing those babies like they, was an old wedded couple. Well, crumble my bank." Brother Elf reprimanded him sharply. "Here now, you keep a latch on those silly tongue of yours, Colin Vole. Don't you know that someday Matthias will be a Redwall mouse? And don't let me hear you slandering young Cornflower. She's a decent mouse from a good family. Mark my words, Masterful. I could say a thing or two to your mom and dad. Only last evening I saw you playing Catch the Bulrush with that young harvest mouse. What was her name now?" Colin Vole blushed until his nose went dry. He flounced off, swishing his tail, muttering about going outside to take the air. Matthias caught a nod and a glance from the abbot. Excusing himself to Cornflower, he deposited the sleeping Tess gently upon his chair and went across to him. "Ah, Matthias, my son, here you are. Did you enjoy my Jubilee feast?" "Yes, thank you, father," Matthias replied. Good, chuckled the abbot. "Now, I was going to ask Brother Elf or Edmund to go on a special errand, but they are no longer young mice and both look quite weary at this late hour. So I thought it might ask my chief grayling, Catcher, to carry out this special task for me." Matthias could not help standing a bit taller. "Say the word and I'm your mouse, sir." The abbot leaned forward and spoke confidently. Do you see the church mouse family? Well, it's such a long way back home for them on foot. Good heavens. And there are so many of them. I thought it would be a splendid idea for you to drive them home to in the Abbey cart, along with any others going that way. Constance Badger would pull the cart, of course. Well, you could act as a guide and bodyguard. Take a good stout staff with you, Matthias. The young mouse needed no second bidding. Drawing himself up to his full height, he saluted in a smart military. Fashion. Leaving it to me. Leave it to me, Father Abbot. Old Constance is a bit slow thinking. Hey, be nice to my girl Constance! Hey! I'll take complete responsibility. The abbot shook with a silent laughter as he watched Matthias march off, with a soldier-like swagger. Flip-flop, flip-flop. He tripped and fell flat on his tail. Oh dear, I'll have to get that young mouse some sandals that aren't so big. The abbot sat to himself for a second, thought to himself for the second time that day. Well, what a stroke of luck. Fancy Cornflower's family living so close to the church mouse brood. Matthias was only too glad to offer them a lift home. Would Miss Cornflower like to sit next to him? She most certainly would. Cornflower's parrot sat inside the cart, her mum helping Miss Church Mouse with the little ones, while her dad chattered away with John Church Mouse, as they shared the pipe of old Bracken Twist. Friar Hugo came out and dumped a bulky sack next to Miss Church Mouse. Abbot says to thank you for the loan of bowls and bowls and tablecloths, ma'am. The friar gave her a huge wink. All comfy back there? Called Matthias. Right, off we go, Constance. The big badger trundled the cart away as they called their good nights. She nodded at Methuselah, the ancient gatekeeper mouse. As the cart rolled out into the road of silver of golden moon looked down from the star-pierced summer night, Matthias gazed upward, feeling as if he were slowly turned with the silent earth. Silently turning with the silent earth. Peace was all about him, the baby mice inside the cart whimpering fitfully as their small secret dreams. Constance ambling slowly along, as though she were on a nighttime stroll pulling no weight at all. The stout ash staff lay forgotten on the footboard. Cornflower dozed against Matthias's shoulder. She could hear the gentle lull of her father's voice, and that of John Churchmouse blending with the hum of nocturnal insects from the meadow and the hedges in the balcony summer night. The summer of the late rose. Cornflower turned the words over in her mind, dreamily thinking of the old rambler which bloomed in the Abbey gardens. Normally, it was in the full red flower by now, but this year, for some unknown reason, it had chosen to flower late. It was covered in dormant young rosebuds, even now, well into June, a thing that happened only infrequently, and usually heralded an extra long, hot summer. Only Methuselah could only remember 3 other such summers in his long lifetime. Accordingly, he had advised that it be marked by a calendar and in the Abbey chronicles as the summer of the late rose. Cornflower's head sank lower in sleep. The old cart rolled on gently down the long dusty road, where they now over halfway to the ruined church of St. Ninan, where John Churchmouse lived, as had his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather before him. Matthias had fallen into a deep slumber. Even Constance was unable to stop her eyelids drooping. She went slower and slower. It was as if the little cart and its occupants were caught in the magic spell of an enchanted summer night. Suddenly, without warning, they were aroused by the thunder of hooves. Nobody could determine which direction the sound was coming from. It seemed to fill the very air about them as it gathered momentum. The ground began to tremble with the rumbling noise. Some sixth sense warned Constance to get off the road and into the hiding place. A powerful badger gave a mighty heave, and her blunt claws churned the roadside soil as she propelled the cart through a gap in the hawthorn hedge, down to the slope of the ditch, where she dug her paws in, holding the cart still and secure, while John Churchmounts and Cornflower's brothers jumped out and wedged the wheels firmly with stones. Matthias gasped and with the shock as the giant horse galloped past, its mane streaming out, eyes rolling in panic. It was towing a hay cart which was bouncing wildly from side to side. Matthias could see the rats amongst the hay, but these were no ordinary rats. They were huge, ragged rodents, bigger than he had ever seen. Their heavy tattooed arms waved a variety of weapons: pikes, knives, spears, and long, rusty cutlasses. Standing boldly on the backboard of the hay cart was the biggest, fiercest, most evil-looking rat that had ever slunk out of a nightmare. In one claw, he grasped a long pole, which a ferret's head spiked to it, which in the other was his thick, enormous tail, which he cracked like a whip, laughing madly and yelling strange curses. He swayed to and fro skillfully as the horse wagon clattered down the road into the night. As suddenly as they had come, they were gone. Matthias walked out. I can pick it up
from here, Phoebe.
Yeah, okay.
Matthias walked out into the road, staff in hand. Stray wisps of hay drifted down behind him. His legs trembled uncontrollably. Constance hauled the Abbey cart back onto the road. Cornflower was helping her mum and Mrs. Churchmouse to calm the little ones' tears of fright. Together they stood in the cart tracks amid the settling dust. "Did you see that? I saw it, but I don't believe it. What in heaven was it? What in the hell, more like? All those rats, such big ones, too. Aye, and that one on the back, he looked like the devil himself." Seeing Matthias still stunned by what had happened, Constance took over the leadership. She wheeled the cart around. "I think we'd best head back for the Abbey," she said firmly. "Father Abbot will want to know about this straight away." Knowing that the Badger was far more experienced than himself, Matthias assumed the role of second in command. "Right. Cornflower, get in the cart and take charge of the mothers and babies," he said. "Mr. Fieldmouse, Mr. Churchmouse, up front with Constance, please." Silently, the mice did as ordered. The cart moved off with Matthias positioned on the back, providing a rear guard. The young mouse gripped his staff tightly, his back to his charges, facing down the road in the direction of the hay cart had taken. We're on to the next chapter, but I can keep going for a couple more pages. It's another short chapter.
Yep, sounds good.
6. The horse had gotten away safely. I gotta say, thank God. He deserves better than that. I hope the horse lives a happy life and gets therapy for his trauma. The horse had gotten away safely. It was the hay cart that suffered the most damage. Bolting recklessly from side to side down the road, the blinkered animal failed to see the twin stone gate posts on its right. Skidding crazily, the cart smashed into the uprights. There was a loud splintering of shafts as the horse careered onwards, trailing in its wake reins, traces, and shattered timber. His lightning reflexes serving him well, Clooney leaped clear. He landed cat-like on all fours as the hay cart upended on the roadside ditch, its buckled wheels spinning awkwardly. Feeling braced after his mad ride and the subsequent narrow escape, Clooney strode to the ditch's end. The distressed cries of those trapped beneath the cart reached his ears. He spat contemptuously, narrowing his one good eye. "Come on, get up out of there, you crying load of cat's meat," he bellowed. "Red Tooth, Dark Claw, report to me or I'll have your skulls for Skittles." Clooney's two henchmen pulled themselves from the ditch, shaking their heads dazedly. Crack! Slash! The whip-like tail brought them swiftly to his side. "Three leg and scratch are dead, Chief." "Dead as dirt. The cart crushed him, Chief." "Stupid fools," snarled snarled Clooney. "Serves them right. What about the rest?" "Old Wormtail has lost his paw. Some of the others are really hurt." Clooney sneered. They'll get over it and suffer worse by the time I'm done with them. They're getting far too fat and sluggish by the tripes. They'd not last 5 minutes in a storm at sea. Come on, you dead and alive rat bags, get up here and gather round." Rats struggled from the ditch and the cart, frantic to obey the harsh command as quickly as possible. They crowded around the undamaged gatepost, which their leader had chosen as a perch. None dared to cry or complain about their hurts. Who could predict what mood the warlord was in? Right. Cock your lungs up and listen to me, Clooney snarled. First, we've got to find out where we have docked. Let's take a bearing on the place. Redtooth held up his claw. The Church of St. Nanan, Chief. It says so on the notice over the board yonder. Well, no matter, Clooney snapped. It'll do as birth until we find something better. Fangs burn, cheese thief. Here, Chief. Scout the area. See if you can find better lodging for us than a heap of rubble. Trail back to the west. I think we passed a big place on the way. Aye, Chief. Frog blood, scum nose. Chief? Take 50 soldiers and see if you can round up any rats that know the lie of the land. Get big, strong rats. But bring along weasels, stoats, and ferrets, too. They'll do at a pinch. Mind now, don't stand for arguments. Smash their dens up so they don't have homes to worry about. If any refuse to join up, then kill them then and there, understood? All clear, Chief. Rager, Mangefur. Man, to be named Mangefur, that sucks. Take 20 rats and forage for supplies. The rest of you get inside the church. Redtooth, Darkclaw, check the armor. See if there are what we can use as weapons. Iron spike railings. There's usually enough of them around a churchyard. Jump to it. Clooney had arrived.
I'll take the next one, so I'm just trying to swallow my dinner.
No, eat your dinner. I can keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Matthias had never stayed up all night in his life. He was just a bit in motion by his news. Immediately upon being informed by the hay cart incident, the abbot had insisted upon calling a special council meeting of all Redwall creatures. Once again, Cavern Hole was packed to the doors, but this time it was for a purpose from the feast. Constant and Matthias stood in front of the council elders. All about them was a hum of whispers and muttering. By ringing a small bell. Pay attention, everyone. Constance and Matthias, would you please tell the council what you saw tonight on the road to St. Nanan's? As clearly as they could, the Badger and Young Mouse related the incidents of the rat-infested hay cart. The council began questioning them. Rats, you say, Matthias? What type of rats? Sorry, that's the wrong voice. This is Clemens asking this. Inquired Sister Clemens. Big ones, Matthias replied, though I'm afraid I couldn't say what kind they were or where they had come from. What about you, Constance? Well, I remember my old granddad once knew a sea rat, she answered, going by his description. And how many would you say there were of these rats? Father Abbot asked. Couldn't say for sure, Father Abbot. There must have been hundreds. Matthias, again, wrong voice. Matthias? Oh yes, Father, I'd agree with Constance. Did you notice anything else about them, Constance? Indeed I did, Father Abbot. My badger senses told me right off that these were very bad and evil rats. The badger's statement caused an uproar and shouts of, Nonsense! Pure speculation! Give a rat a bad name. Matthias silenced the hubbub. Raising a paw, he shouted aloud, Constance is right! I could feel it myself. There was one huge rat with a ferret's skull on a pole. I got a good look at him. It was like seeing some horrible monster. In the silence that followed, the abbot, stooping silently, he stared into the young mouse's bright eyes. Think carefully, my son. Was there anything special you noticed about this rat? Matthias thought for a moment. He was much bigger than the others, Father. What else? Think, Matthias. I remember. He only had one eye. Right or left? Left, I think. Yes, it was the left, Father. Now, can you recall anything about his tail? I certainly can, Matthias squeaked. It must have been the longest tail of any rat alive. He held it in his claw as if it were a whip. The abbot paced up and down Twice in my lifetime, I have heard travelers speak of this rat. He bears a name that a fox would be afraid to whisper in the darkness of midnight. Clooney the Scourge. A deathly hush fell upon the creatures in Cavern Hole. Clooney the Scourge. Surely not. He was only some kind of folk legend, a warning used by mothers when youngsters were factitious or disobedient. Go to sleep or Clooney will get you. Eat up your dinner or Clooney will come. Come in this instant or I'll tell Clooney. Ayo.
Ayo,
Most creatures didn't even, sorry, it's just like that got me. Come in this instance. Most creatures didn't even know what Clooney was. He was just some sort of boogie that lived in bad dreams and the dark corners of imagination. The silence was broken by scornful snorts and derisive laughter. Flurry elbows nudged downy ribs. Mice were beginning to smile from sheer relief. Clooney the Scourge indeed. Feeling slightly abashed, Matthias and Constance looked pleadingly towards Abbott for support. Abbott Mortimer's old face was stern as he shook the bell vigorously for silence. Mice of Redwall, I see there are those amongst you who doubt the word of your abbot. The quiet but authoritative words caused an embarrassed shuffling from the council elders. Brother Joseph stood up and cleared his throat. Good Father Abbot, we all respect your word and look for your guidance, but really, I mean... Sister Clemence stood up, smiling. She spread her paws wide. Perhaps Clooney is coming to get us for staying up late. A roar of laughter greeted the iconic words. Constance's back hairs bristled. She gave an angry growl followed by a fierce bark. The mice huddled together with fright. Nobody had ever seen a snarling, angry badger at a council meeting. Before they could recover, Constance was up on her hind legs having her say, I've never seen such a pack of empty-headed ninnies. You should all be ashamed of yourselves, giggling like silly otter cubs that have caught a beetle. I never thought I'd live to see the elders of Redwall acting in this way. Constance hunched her heavy shoulders and glared about with a ferocity that set them trembling. Now you listen to me. Take heed of what your Father Abbot has to say. The next creature who utters one word will speak, or utters one squeak will answer to me, understood? The badger bowed low in a dignified manner, gesturing with her massive blunt paw. The floor is yours, Father Abbot. Thank you, Constance, my good and faithful friend, the abbot murmured. He looked about him, shaking his head gravely. I have little more to say on the subject. But as I see you still need convincing, here is my proposal. We will send 2 mice out to relieve the gatehouse. Let me see, yes. Brother Rufus and George, would you kindly go and take over from Brother Methuselah? Please send him in here to me. Tell him to bring the Travelers, record volumes. Not the present issue, but the old editions, which were used in past years. Rufus and George, both, solid-looking, sensible mice, took their leave with a formal bow to the abbot. Through a high-slitted window, Matthias could see the rosy pink and gold fingers of dawn stealing in down the cavern hole as the candles began to flicker and smoke into stubs. All in the space of a night, events had moved from festivity to crisis, and he, Matthias, had taken a major role in both. First, the big grayling, then the sighting of the cart. Large happenings for a small mouse. Old Brother Methuselah had kept the Abbey records for as long as any creature could remember. It was his life's work and consuming passion. Besides the official chronicle of Redwall, he also kept his own personal volume, full of valuable information. Traveling creatures, migratory birds, wandering foxes, rambling squirrels, and... what a word is that? Garrulous hares. Baby, is that right? Garrulous? Garrulous.
Yeah.
Chad, have you got any guess?
Garrulous?
Garrulers. Welcome to the chat, Megalodon.
Yes.
Happy to have you. We're reading Redwall.
If you don't know who we are, I am Phoebe. I am a storyteller and human and nothing else. And my lovely co-star today is Jamathan on Earth, my sibling.
I am the tiny slime sibling. Hello. Don't ask how that works. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry about it too much.
It's just how it is.
Yeah.
It's just how it is.
Yeah. But yes, welcome in, welcome in. It's so nice to have you. Come curl up by the fire as we continue to read.
You're here just in time for the inciting incident.
Yeah, you've landed literally in the middle of it.
Yep. All right, where were we? Brother Methuselah likes books. His books have hairs. There they are. Garrulous hairs. They all stopped and chatted with the old mouse, partaking of his hospitality, never dreaming of hurting him in any way. Methuselah had the gift of tongues. He could understand any creature, even a bird. He was an extraordinary old mouse who lived with the company of his volumes in the solitude of the gatehouse. Seated in the Father Abbot's own chair, Methuselah took his spectacles from a moss-bark case, carefully perching them on the bridge of his nose. All gathered round to hear as he opened a record book and spoke in a squeak barely above a whisper. Me, the Lord Abbot Cedric. It is Cedric, isn't it? Oh, botheration. You'll be the new abbot, Mortimer, the one who came after Cedric. Oh, dear me. I see so many of them come and go, you know. That Lord Abbot Mortimer and members of Redwall. I refer to a record of winters 6 years back. Here the ancient mouse took a while to leaf through the pages. Yes, here it is. Late in November, year of the small sweet chestnut, from a frozen sparrowhawk came down from the far north. Peculiar chap. Spoke with a strange accent. I didn't realize he was still speaking here.
Yeah, for some reason they randomly threw in a closing
quotation. Yeah, because he stopped reading the book, and then I was like, why are they saying that the... Sorry.
Yeah. You're good.
Yes. Here it is. Late in November, year of the small sweet chestnut, from a frozen sparrowhawk came down from the far north. Peculiar chap. Spoke with a strange accent. I repaired his right wing pin feather. News of a mine disaster caused by a large savage sea rat named Clooney. It seemed that this rat wanted to settle his army in the mine. The badgers and other creatures who owned the mine drove them out. Clooney returned by night and with his band of rats gnawed away and undermined much of the wooden shoring. This caused the mine to collapse the next day, killing the owners. Brother Methuselah closed the volume and looked over his glasses at the assembly. I have no need to read further. I can recite other misdeeds from memory, as the hordes of Clooney the Scourge have moved southward over the past 6 years. I have gathered intelligence of other incidents. A farmhouse set alight later the same year. Piglets, an entire litter of them eaten alive by rats. Sickness and disease spread through livestock herds by Clooney's army. There was even a report brought to me 2 years ago by a town dog. An army of rats stampeded a herd of crows through a village, causing chaos and much destruction. Methuselah halted and blinked over his spectacles. And you dare doubt the word from our abbot that Clooney the Scourge exists? What idiotic mice you are, to be sure. Methuselah's words caused widespread consternation. There was much agitated nimbling of paws. Nobody could doubt he spoke the truth. He was already old and wise when most elderly among them was a blind, hairless mite, pulling and whimpering for a feed from its mother. Oh, my whiskers, what a mess. Hadn't we better pack up and move? Maybe Clooney will spare us. Oh dear, what should we do? Matthias sprang to the middle of the floor, brandishing his staff. Do, he cried. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll be ready. The abbot could not help shaking his head in admiration. It seemed that young Matthias had hidden depths. Why, thank you, Matthias, he said. I could not have put it better myself. That's exactly what we'll do. We'll be ready.
Bum, bum, bum. I can take from here. You've done awesome.
Thanks. How was your supper?
Very, very good. I got spring rolls. You got spring rolls.
I love me a spring roll.
Clooney, the Scourge, was having nightmares. He had lain down in the church mouse's bed for a well-earned rest when his armies were going about their allotted tasks. He should never have tried to sleep on an empty stomach, but weariness overcame his hunger. In Clooney's dream, everything was shrouded in a red mist. The cries of his victims rang out as barns blazed. The ships foundered on the stormy Red Sea, cattle bellowing in pain as he battled with the pike that had taken his eye. The warlord thrashed about, killing, conquering, and laying waste to all in his dream. Then the phantom figure appeared. At first it seemed a small thing, a mouse in fact, dressed in a long hooded robe. Clooney did not relish meeting with it. He could not tell why, but the mouse kept getting closer to him. For the first time in his life, he turned and ran. Clooney went like a bat out of hell. Glancing back, he saw all the carnage, death, and misery he had caused in his career. The big rat laughed insanely and ran faster, on, past scenes of desolation and destruction wrecked by him, Clooney the Scourge. Floating through the red mist, he could still see the strange mouse hard on his heels. Clooney felt himself filled with hatred for his pursuer. It seemed to have grown larger. His eyes were cold and grim. Deep inside, Clooney knew that there was even he could not frighten this oddly garbed mouse. Now it was wielding a large, bright sword, an ancient weapon of terrible beauty. The battle-scarred blade had a word written upon it that he could not make out. Sweat dripped from Clooney's claws like stinging acid. He stumbled. The strange figure was close. It had grown into a giant. Clooney's lungs felt as if they were bursting. He realized that he had slowed up, and the mouse was getting closer. He tried to put an extra burst of speed, but his legs would not obey. They ran more and more slowly, more and more heavily. Clooney cursed aloud as his laden limbs. He saw he was trapped in deep, icy mud. For the first time he knew the meaning of mindless fear and panic. He turned slowly. Too late. The enemy was upon him. He was rooted helpless to the spot. The avenging mouse swung the sword up high. A million lights flashed from its deadly blade as it struck. Bong! The loud toll of the distant Joseph Bell caught Clooney whirling back into the realms of nightmare to cold reality. He shivered, wiping the sweat from his fur with a shaky claw, saved by the bell. He was puzzled. What did the fearful dream mean? Clooney had never been one to put his faith in omens, but this dream, it had been so lifelike and vivid that he shuddered. A timid paw tapping on the door snapped Clooney from his reverie with a start. It was Rieger and Mangefur, his scavengers. They slunk into the room, each trying to hide behind the other, knowing that the poor results of their search were likely to incur the chief's wrath. Their assumptions were correct. Clooney's baleful eyes watched them as his long, flexible tail sorted through the paltry offerings which had dropped from their claws. A few dead beetles, 2 large earthworms, some unidentified vegetation, and the pitiful carcass of a long-dead sparrow. Clooney smiled at Rieger and Mangefoot. With a sigh of relief, they grinned back at him. The chief was in a good mood. At lightning speed, the big rat's claws shot out and grabbed them both cruelly by the ears. The stupid hench rats yowled piteously as they were lifted bodily from the floor and swung to and fro in a fit of rage. Clooney bashed their heads together, half senseless. They were hurled towards the doorway with his angry words ringing in their skulls. Beetles, worms, and rotten sparrows. Get me meat. Tender, young, red meat. Next time you bring me rubbish like this, I'll split the pair of you and have you roasted on your own juice. Is that clear? Mangefur pointed an accusing claw at his companion. Please, Chief, it was Rieger's fault. If we'd gone across the fields instead of up the road, don't believe that fat liar, Chief. It was him who suggested going to the road, not me. Get out! The scavengers dashed off, bumping clumsily into each other in panic as they tried to get through the door together. Clooney slumped back in his bed, snorting impatiently. Frog Blood and Scum Nose were next to report. They bore news that cheered Clooney up somewhat. They'd obtained over 100 new recruits, mainly rats, but with good scattering of ferrets and weasels, and the odd stout. There had been some who needed convincing. These had been press-ganged by a savage beating from Frog Blood, coupled with the threat of a horrible death. They were soon convinced that the wisest course was to enlist in Clooney's horde. Others were hungry nomads, only too willing to join up with the infamous infamous. They were greedy for plunder and booty, and me too, and pleased to be on what they were, what they were sure would be the winning side. Lined up in the churchyard, the recruits were supplied with weaponry by Redtooth and Darkclaw. Impassively, they stood in ranks, awaited with the warlord's inspection. Clooney nodded his approval. Scurvy rats, hungry ferrets, sly weasels, bad stouts. Exactly what he needed. Read him up the articles, Redtooth, he snapped. Redtooth swaggered back and forth on the churchyard paving as he recited the formula from memory. Right eyes front. You're in the service of Clooney the Scourge now, me buckos. Desert, and you'll be killed. Retreat, and you're under sentence of death. Disobey, and you'll die. I'm Redtooth, Clooney's #1 rat. You will obey the word of your captains. They take orders from me. I take orders from Clooney. Remember that. Now, if any one, two, or group, or even all of you together want to try and beat Clooney and lead the horde, this is your chance. Without warning, Clooney charged headlong into the new recruits, lashing out wildly with his scourging tail. He bowled them left, right, and center with his massive strength, baring his teeth and slitting his eyes. He wiped fiercely away until they fell back, scattering in disorder, hiding behind gravestones. Clooney threw back his head and roared with laughter. No guts, eh? It's just as well. I don't want dead uns on my claws before I find a proper battle for you to fight. And make no mistake, when the right time comes, I'll see you fight, and die too. Now raise your weapons, and let's see if you know who your master is. A motley collection of evil-looking implements were framed by the cloudless sky as wild cries rang out from newly inducted recruits. Clooney, Clooney, Clooney the Scourge.
Abbot Mortimer and Constance, Chapter 9, also. Abbot Mortimer and Constance the Badger meandered through the grounds together. Both creatures were deep in thought. Had they spoken and voiced their thoughts, they would have mentioned the same subject, the safety of Redwall. Down long ages, the beautiful old abbey had stood for happiness, peace, and refuge to all. Diligent mice tended the neat little vegetable patches, and every season gave forth an abundance of fresh produce, cabbages, sprouts, marrows, turnips, peas, carrots, tomatoes, lettuce, and onions, all in their turn. This guy loves listing things. He likes big lists. Every chapter has a new big list. Flower beds, hardy and fragrant with countless varieties of summer blooms from rose to humble daisy, were planted by mice and husbanded by the hard-working bee folk, who in their turn rewarded Redwall with plentiful supplies of honey and beeswax. The two friends wandered onwards past the pond. Early morning sunlight glinted off the water, throwing out which were baited and left to drift each evening by Brother Al. Ahead of them lay the berry hedges, raspberry, blackberry, bilberry, and the strawberry patch, where every August sleepy baby creatures could be seen, their stomachs full after eating the pick of the crop. Gradually, they had made their way around the big old chestnut tree into the orchard. This was the abbot's favorite spot. Many a leisurely nap had he taken on a Sunday afternoons, with the aroma of ripening fruits hovering in his whiskers. More lists, guys, get ready. Apples, pears, quince, plums, damsons, even a vine of wild grape in the warm red stone of the south-facing wall. Old Mother Nature's blessing lay upon a haven of warm friendliness. Now, with the thread of Cluny upon Redwall, the two friends ascended the beauteous bounty of their lifelong abode. Sweet birdsong on the still air tinged Constance's heart with sorrow and regret that this peaceful existence would soon pass. Gruffly, she snuffled deep in her throat, blinking off a threatening teardrop. The abbot sensed his companion's distress. He patted the badger's rough coat with a gentle paw. There, old girl, don't fret. Many times in our history has tragedy been forestalled by miraculous happenings. Constance grunted in agreement, not wishing to disillusion her trusting old friend. Deep within her, she knew a dark shadow was casting itself over the Abbey. Furthermore, it was happening in the present, not in bygone days of fabled deeds. Matthias seated himself to an early breakfast in cavern hold, nut bread, apples, and a bowl of fresh goat's milk. Cornflower, along with other woodland creatures, were granted sanctuary. Granted sanctuary, were sleeping in makeshift quarters provided by the good mice of Redwall. Matthias felt he had grown up overnight. Duty was a mantle that he had taken willingly upon his shoulders. If there was a threat to Redwall from outside, it must be dealt with. The mice of Redwall were peaceful creatures, but that was not to be taken as a sign of weakness. Stolidly, he munched away. Eat heartily, Matthias. No point in facing trouble on an empty stomach. Feed the body, nourish the mind. The young mouse was surprised to see that old brother Methuselah had been watching him. His eyes twinkled behind curious spectacles he invariably wore. The ancient mouse sat down at the breakfast table with a small groan. Don't look so surprised, young one. Your face is an open. Drained the last of the milk from his bowl, wiping cream from his whiskers with the back of a paw. Give me your advice, brother Methuselah, he said. What would you do? The old mouse wrinkled his nose. But that is, if I were younger and not so old and stiff. Matthias felt he had found an ally. You mean you would fight? Methuselah rapped. Of course I would.
You keep cutting off, Jamie. I'm so sorry. Would you repeat that?
Oh yeah. Has it been bad?
No, it's just been like the last couple, few sentences. Every so often you'll cut off partway through a sentence.
Okay, let's try this. Maybe my mic's too close to me. Don't look so surprised, young one. Your face is an open book to one of my years. Matthias drained the last of the milk from his bowl, wiping cream from his whiskers with the back of a paw. Your advice, brother Methuselah, he said. What would you do? The old mouse wrinkled his nose. Exactly the same thing as you would. That is, if I were younger and not so old and stiff. He had found an ally. You mean you would fight? Methuselah rapped the table with a bony paw. Of course I would. It's the only sensible course to take. He paused and stared at Matthias in an odd manner. You know, there's something about you, young feller. Did you hear the story of how Martin the warrior first came to Redwall? Matthias leaned forward eagerly. Martin, tell me, brother, I love hearing about the warrior monk. Methuselah's voice dropped to a secretive whisper. It is written in the great chronicle of Redwall that Martin was very young to be such a warrior. He could have been the same age as yourself, Matthias. Like you, he was impulsive and had a great quality of youthful innocence about him when he first came to our abbey. But it is also written that in times of trouble, Martin had the gift of a natural leader, a command over others far superior to him in age and experience. The chronicle says that they looked to Martin as some look to a strong father. Matthias was full of wonderment, but he could not help but feel puzzled. Why do you tell all this to me, brother Methuselah? The old mouse stood up. He stared hard at Matthias for a moment, then, turning, he shuffled slowly off. As he went, he called back over his shoulder. Because, Matthias, he was very like you. Before the young mouse could question the old one further, the Joseph bell tolled out a warning. Sandals flapping, Matthias dashed out into the grounds, nearly colliding with the abbot and Constance, who, like everyone else, was heading for the gatehouse. Do you want to go from there, Phoebe?
Damn it, I muted myself. Yeah, I can go from here. I was gonna say that. I said that, and then you were like, "Hey, would you please?" And I was like, "What?" Okay. Brothers Rufus and George had an incident to report. A large, evil-looking rat, covered in tattoos and carrying a rusty cutlass, had turned up at the gate. He had tried to gain entry by pretending to be injured. Limping about, the rat explained that he had been in a hay cart, which overturned into the ditch. Would they come with him and render assistance to his friends, many of whom were lying trapped beneath the cart, crying out for help? Brother Rufus was no fool. How many rats were traveling in the cart together, he asked. Oh, a couple hundred, came the glib reply. Then why, reasoned Brother Rufus, did the rats not give aid to their own companions? Surely all 200 were not trapped. The rat evaded the question and made a great show of rubbing his injured leg. Could they not take him in and dress his wounds and perhaps give him a bite to eat at least? Brother George agreed, on condition the rat surrender his weapon. The rat made as if to do so, then suddenly lunged at Brother George, only to be sent sprawling by a blow from the Brother Rufus's staff. Realizing that he was up against two big, competent mice who would stand no nonsense, he became abusive and foul-mouthed. Ha! Just you wait, mice, he raged. There's a whole army of us camping down at the church, and I tell Clooney how you treated me. Oh, just wait. That's all. We'll be back. By the fang we will. With that, he slunk off, cursing all mice. Yeah. Sorry, I just saw the almost like love the Skyrim music, yeah. The grim news was digested in silence by the assembled creatures. Miss Churchmouse began sobbing. Oh, dearie me, did you hear that, my dear? They must be living in our home. That's Saint Ninan's church. Whatever shall we do? Our dear little home, full of dreadful rats. Mr. John Churchmouse tried to comfort his wife as best he could. There, hush now, missus. Better to lose a house than lose our lives. A good job we've been given sanctuary here at Redwall. But what about the other creatures in the area? Sorry, wrong character. But what about the other creatures in the area? Cried Matthias. Sensible mouse, said Constance. Is Ambrose Spike anywhere about? You'd better do the rounds and tell them to take sanctuary here at the Abbey as quickly as possible. Spike will come to no harm. Once he curls up, There's nothing can touch him. This idea was greeted with enthusiasm. Brother Elf went off to find the great hedgehog. The abbot suggested that they all go inside the abbey and await further developments. Matthias piped up again. I think we'd best mount a guard on the walls. One of the older mice, Sister Clements, chided Matthias as an upstart. Her voice was stern and condescending. Novice Matthias, you will be silent and do as your abbot commands. Much as to everyone's surprise, the abbot came to Matthias's defense. One moment, Clemens. Matthias speaks sense. Let us hear what he has to say. We are none of us too old to learn. All eyes turned to the young mouse. Boldly, he outlined his plans for the defense of Redwall. It was 11 o'clock on that glorious June morning. Mossflower woods and the meadowlands stirred to the brazen voice of the great Joseph Bell. John Churchmouse heaved on the bell rope, as he had been told to by Constance and Matthias. Bong, boom, bong, boom. Even the small creatures in the wood and field who could understand no language save their own knew what it meant. Time of danger. Place of sanctuary. Carrying what simple belongings they needed, woodlanders and their families hurried from far and near to gain the safety of the abbey before the storm of Cluny broke upon them. Squirrels, mice, voles, moles, otters, all save the birds of the air, who were safe anyway. Up the long, dusty road they came, mothers protectively herding young ones whilst the fathers provided a rear guard. Brother Methuselah stood at the gate with the abbot. He translated fully to each group of creatures that the abbot's message, in turn construing back to the Father Abbot their grateful thanks with pledges of help and loyalty to Redwall Abbey. For what creatures had not been freely given the aid and special knowledge of the kindly mice? All knew that they owed their very existence to the abbot and his community. Healing, aid, food, shelter, the good advice were granted to all. Now was the time to unite and repay, to give any help that was possible. Before much longer, Redwall would require the skills and knowledge of all its woodland allies. It would be gratefully given. Matthias and Constance stood on top of the high perimeter? Yeah, walls.
Perimeter. The
Perimeter.
High
Thank
walls.
you. Thank you. I read it before. Fine. I don't know why my brain's decided. Not this time. The perimeter walls, watching the road. It was noon, and the sun shone directly overhead. Despite the heat, Matthias had ordered all mice to put on their hoods. It served a double purpose, to shield their eyes from the sun and create a camouflage effect. Silently, each one stood, armed with a stout staff. The high red sandstone walls were far too lofty to be scaled by any normal creature. Instinctively, Matthias knew this was a good defense and a formidable deterrent. Constance could feel her hackles beginning to prickle. She sniffed the air and shivered despite the heat that shimmered in the waves across the meadowlands. The big badger nudged Matthias. Listen to that. Matthias pricked his ears and looked at her, questioning. Even the birds have stopped singing, Constance said quietly. The young mouse gripped his staff tighter. Yes, it's the silence we can hear. The grasshoppers, too, have gone quiet. Constance peered down the road as she spoke. Strange for a summer day, little friend. Bong. Every creature standing on the ramparts twitched with fright as a loud voice of the Joseph Bell rang out. And John Churchmouse shouted from his position high in the belfry. They're coming! Down the road! I can see them! I can see them! You want me to keep going?
No, I got it.
Yeah.
Cluny's army halted at the sound of the Joseph Bell. As the dust settled, Fangburned looked to his leader for approval. They're ringing that bell again, Chief. Maybe they think it'll frighten us off. The warlord's eye rested balefully on his scout. Shut your mouth, fool. If you'd done as I'd ordered and come right back to report the way Cheese Thief did, we might have been inside that abbey by now. Fangburn slunk back into the ranks. He hoped Clooney had forgotten, but Clooney rarely forgot anything on a campaign. The element of surprise had been lost. Now he must try another ploy, the show of force. The mere sight of a fully armed horde had worked before, and he had little doubt it would prove effective now. Ordinary, peaceful creatures were usually panic-stricken at the sight of Clooney the Scourge at the head of his army. The rat was a cunning general, except during the times when his mad rage took control of him. But what need of berserk fits for a bunch of silly mice? Clooney knew the value of fear as a weapon, and Clooney was a fearsome figure. His long, ragged black cloak was made of bat wings, fastened at the throat with a mole skull. Edgelord. The immense war helmet he wore had the plumes of a black bird and the horns of a stag beetle adorning it. From beneath the slanted visor, his one eye glared viciously out at the abbey before him. Matthias's voice rang out sharp and clear from the high parapet. "Halt! Who goes there?" Redtooth swaggered forward and took up the challenge of his chief's name as he called back up the walls. "Look well, all creatures. This is the mighty horde of Clooney the Scourge. My name is Redtooth. I speak for Clooney, our leader." Constance's reply was harsh and unafraid. "Then speak your peace and be gone, rats." Silence hung upon the air while Redtooth and Clooney held a whispered conference. Redtooth returned to the wall. "Clooney the Scourge says he will not deal with the badgers. He'll only speak with the leaders of mice. Let us in, so that my chief may sit and talk to your chief."
Sorry.
Redtooth.
He's really scared of you. He's really scared of the badger. He won't talk to the badger.
He doesn't want to talk to the badger, please. Redtooth dodged back at his request, as his request was greeted with howls of derision and some loose pieces of masonry from the ramparts. These plump little mice were not as peaceful as they first looked. The rats looked to Clooney, but he was eyeing the abbot who had joined Constance and Matthias. They appeared to be consulting quietly. Clooney watched tensely. There seemed to be some disagreement between the old mouse and his two advisors. They conferred a while, then Matthias came forward to the parapet. He pointed at Clooney and Redtooth with his staff. "You there, and you also. My abbot will talk with you both. The rest must remain outside." A rumble of protest from the horde was silenced by a crack from Clooney's tail. He lifted his visor. "We agree, Mouse. Let us in." "But what about a hostage for safe conduct?" hissed Redtooth. Clooney spat contemptuously. "Don't talk, wet. Did you imagine a load of mice in funny robes could take me captive?" Redtooth gnawed anxiously on a split claw. "Maybe not, Chief, but have you cast a weather eye over that badger?" Clooney answered quietly out the side of his mouth. "Don't worry. I've been watching her. A real big country bumpkin. No, these mice of honor. These are mice of honor. They'd sooner die than break their word to anyone. You leave this to me." As Clooney and Redtooth made for the gatehouse door, Constance shouted, "Put down your weapons, rats. Throw off your armor and show us that you come in peace." Redtooth spluttered angrily. "Hell's teeth! Who does that one think she's ordering around?" Clooney shot him a warning glance. "Quiet. Do as she says." Both rats took off their armor and placed it in a pile on the road. Matthias cried down to Clooney, "If you really are Clooney the Scourge, then we know of your tale It is a weapon. Therefore, you will knot it tightly around your waist so that it cannot be used." Clooney laughed mirthlessly. He squinted at Matthias and cracked his tail dramatically. "Young mouse," he called, "you do right to ask of this thing, for you truly are looking... Ooh. I lost my place. Oh boy, reading a book online is hard. Buddy, what page should I be on?
Oh god, the pages aren't 51.
Oh, I got it. You truly are looking at Clooney the Scourge. Having said this, he took his tail in his claws, pulled the poison war spike from its tip, tossing it on the armor pile. Clooney hitched his tail in a knot around his middle. Now will you let us in, mice? You can see we are unarmed. Ponderously, the heavy gate inched open. The two rats passed through a bristling forest of staves. The gate slammed shut behind them. Clooney mentally estimated the walls to be of immense thickness as he and Redtooth, ducking their heads, emerged from the tunnel-like arch into the Abbey grounds, where Constance and Matthias were waiting in the sunlight. The defenders followed the two rats closely, menacing them with staves. Matthias wrapped up a court command. Leave us, mice. Go back to your duties on the wall. Unhappy at leaving the abbot unguarded, the mice hesitated to obey the order to withdraw. Clooney addressed Matthias scornfully. Here, mouse. Watch me shift 'em. Suddenly, he whirled upon the apprehensive creatures. The single eye rolled madly in its socket as Clooney bared his fangs and claws, snarling, Har! Har! I've got a powerful hunger for mice. You'd best get aloft on those walls. Ha har! Clooney leaped into the air. The mice scattered in panic. Constance stopped the proceedings with a loud, angry bark. Here now, enough of that, rat. You are here to talk with the abbot. Get along with you. Matthias was like, glad he was walking.
Fuck you.
She's like, shut the fuck up. He's like, I'm just trying to have fun. Matthias was glad he was walking behind the rats. He blushed with shame. Clooney had sent the defenders scattering like butterflies in a whirlwind. Matthias was furious. The enemy now knew he was dealing with untrained and untested soldiers. As the party walked towards Cavern Hole, Clooney could sense hostility emanating from the young mouse, who flip-flopped behind him in over-large sandals. Strange for one so young to be counted as a captain, he thought. Moreover, the little fellow didn't seem to fear him. Yeah, but enough of that. Clooney could deal with him when the time came. Meanwhile, the big rat gazed about his surroundings with secret admiration. What an astounding place. He allowed himself a peek at the furniture. One day this would be called Clooney's Castle. He liked the sound of that. Secure from attack, living off the fat of the land. In his mind's eye he saw it all. Those mice and the woodland creatures enslaved, living just to serve him. He would sway as far as the eye could see. Power, an end to his rovings, a dream come true. King Clooney. Entering the abbey, the party stopped to make way for pretty little field mouse, bearing a tray. Oh, Matthias, she said, I've brought some refreshments for you and... Thank you, Cornflower. Put them down on the table, said Matthias abruptly. Redtooth nudged Clooney. Cornflower, eh? Satan's knows she's a pretty little one for you. Clooney remained silent. He stood insolently watching Cornflower set the table in Cavern Hole. A pretty one indeed. The abbot indicated chairs. They all sat except Clooney, who lounged against the table using the chair as a footstool. He glared at Redtooth until he stood and waited alongside his chief idly. Clooney picked up a bowl of honeyed milk and sampled it. Slop. He spat it out on the floor. The abbot folded his impassively at the warlord.
Oh, it happened again. Would you mind repeating that, please?
Yeah, for sure. Slop. He spat it out onto the floor. The abbot folded his paws into the wide sleeves of his habit and stared impassively at the warlord. What do you want at Redwall Abbey, my son? Clooney kicked the chair over and laughed madly. Hang on, give me 1 sec. I have a feeling I know what's happening.
Aw. Here, I can take over for a little bit. Clooney kicked the chair over and laughed madly as the echoes died around the room. His face went grim. Your son. That's a good one. I'll tell you what I want, Mouse. I want it all. The lot. Everything.
Do you hear me? Matthias's chair clattered on its side as he sprang forward, breaking free from the restraining paws of the abbot. Listen, rat! You don't scare me. I'll give you an answer. You get nothing. Now do you understand that? Shaking with fury, Matthias allowed himself to be pulled back onto the chair. The abbot turned to Clooney. You must forgive Matthias. He is young and headstrong. Now, as to your proposal, I'm afraid it is out of the question. Should you and your army require medical attention, food, clothing, or help along your way, you will find us only too willing to assist. Clooney interrupted rudely by pounding upon the table until the abbot was silenced. He pointed a claw at Redtooth. Read them the articles. Redtooth held up a tattered parchment. He cleared his throat. These are the articles of surrender, to be obeyed by all creatures to whom come under the claw of Clooney the Scourge, or any of his commanders. 1. Surrender will be total and unconditional. 2. Clooney will execute the leaders of all who choose to oppose him. 3. All property conquered will belong solely to Clooney the Scourge. This includes homes, food, crop, land, and additionally all creatures dwelling on said property. They shall be owned by Clooney. Thwack! Redtooth got no further. Unable to contain himself, Matthias sent his staff ripping through the middle of the articles. As the torn document fluttered to the floor, Redtooth launched himself at Matthias with a snarl. The rat was actually midair when a huge blunt paw knocked him flat. He lay stunned, with Constance standing over him. Why pick on a small mouse? Surely a big, strong rat like you can deal with an old badger. Come on, try me for size. It was only the timely intervention of Abbot Mortimer that saved Redtooth's life. Constance, would you please let the rat up? Much as I would like to see him get his desserts, you must remember we cannot break the law of hospitality in our abbey. Redtooth staggered shakily to his feet, backing warily away from the badger. Clooney spoke as if nothing had occurred. You, Abbot Mouse, you have until tomorrow evening to give me your answers. Not normally given to anger, the abbot stared Clooney in the eye, his face a mask of cold fury. I will not need until tomorrow, rat. You can have my answer now. How dare you come with your robber band to read articles of death and slavery to me? I tell you that neither you nor your army will ever set paw or claw inside Redwall. Not will I or any of my creatures have breath in our bodies to fight and resist you. That is my solemn word. Clooney sneered and turned on his heel. Followed by Redtooth, he stamped out. On the stairs between Cavern Hall and the Great Hall, he stopped and turned, his cold voice echoing between both chambers. Then die, all of you, every male, female, and young one. The three genders. You have refused my terms. Now you will suffer the punishment of Clooney. You will beg on your knees for death to come swiftly, but I shall make your torment loud and long before you die. It was then that Constance did something that creatures would speak of in years to come. Exerting the full strength of a female badger, she lifted the mastered cavern hole dining table. It was a huge, solid oaken thing, that no dozen mice could ever move. Dishes clattered and food spilled as Constance heaved the table above her head. Her voice was a roar. Get out, rats! Leave this abbey! I'm wary of your voices. Hurry before I break the laws of hospitality and ask the abbot pardon later. Go while you still have skulls! With the best grace he could muster, Clooney walked rather quickly up the stairs, followed by Redtooth, who laughed nervously. Big country bumpkin, eh, Chief? One more word from you back there, and she'd have thrown the table and crushed us. Remembering who it was that had spoken. Remembering who it was that he had spoken to in this insolent fashion,
Redtooth cringed, expecting Clooney to deal him a blow for impudence, but nothing happened. Clooney was standing transfixed, oblivious to all about him, even Matthias and the abbot who had followed him out. Clooney stood staring at the tapestry. "Who is that mouse?" he gasped. Matthias followed the direction of the rat's gaze. He walked to the tapestry with his paw outstretched. "Do you mean this mouse?" Clooney nodded dumbly. Matthias, still with his paw outstretched, declared proudly, "This is Martin the Warrior. He founded our order. Now I'll tell you something else, rat. Martin was the bravest mouse that ever lived. If he were here today, he'd just take up his big sword and send you and all your bullies packing. Those of you he didn't chop up into crow meat." Much to everyone's surprise, Clooney allowed himself to be shown out. He was like in a daze all the way back to the gatehouse. A hush fell over the mice on guard as Clooney and Redtooth were led out to the road. Swiftly the horde gathered around the warlord and his lieutenant. They awaited orders. Deputizing for Clooney, Redtooth called out, "Form up! Back to the church, everyone!" Clooney marched automatically, shaking his head in disbelief. Martin the Warrior, the mouse who pursued him through his nightmares. What did it mean? As Redtooth marched away, a voice hailed from the wall. He turned and looked forward. The torn articles, the parchment wrapped around a fistful of rotten vegetables, splattered in his face. Livid with rage, he clawed the foul mess from his eyes and saw Constance leaning over the parapet, with a wicked grin of delight on her stripped muzzle. The badger shouted mockingly, Don't forget to call again, rat. I'll be delighted to see you. We've got some unfinished business that I'm looking forward to settling. Just you and me, Redtooth. Bye now." Before the rat could reply, she had vanished from sight. I love her. I love her so much. You dare accuse me of shrimping and making me drink?
I think maybe it's about that time. And she's Mommy. Sorry.
Yeah.
Mommy.
I do love that Matthias is like, yeah, she's kind of slow and stupid, and she's like the most competent person in the room at all times.
She is the most competent person in the room.
Like any room that she's in, she's the competence person. Like, I love Constance. I love Constance so much. We are at the 2 hour mark, Jamie.
Yeah.
Well, welcome in, Fake Lay. Unfortunately, we're just finishing up. But we will be back next Tuesday, or not next Tuesday, the Tuesday after
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So October 7th.
We'll be doing this every other Tuesday until we finish the book.
Mm-hmm. And October 1st, I'll be doing Princess Peach Showtime.
Wahoo!
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 It's Peach
Baby,
time!
Are we doing anything special for Halloween?
I haven't decided yet. Last year, it landed on a Tall Tale Tuesday, so I got to read spooky stories all night, and I finished the evening playing Little Nightmares. So I'm thinking... Well, dang. I know. I was thinking maybe we could pick up a horror game, me and you, if you're free. And we could play through a horror game together, because I can't play through horror games.
Play a spooky game.
Yeah. I can't play scary games alone. I'm too much of a baby. I need someone to take the reins every so often, because I'll just give up. I'll just start crying. I don't have a... I need to buy myself a bookmark. I don't have one. I'm just going to dog-ear the page for now, and you guys can make fun of me for that later.
Baby, thank you so much for having me on as a guest. I had a really great time. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Little Nightmares is one of my favorite games.
You had fun too?
Yeah. Why don't we find somebody to raid, Jamie?
Oh, who do I have? Who do I have available? Let me take a look-see.
Yeah, you're the guest. You get first pickies.
Oh, well, that one's a little bit easier. Spiff is live.
Oh, that
Lollipop Chainsaw.
Oh my gosh. So, well, we have to raid Spiffy.
We gotta raid Spiff. My other choice would have been possibly Fire on Ray.
Oh, that's another really good one.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, I have to mute Spiff because we're using that to play Spotify. But yeah, so we'll probably pick a horror game and announce it for the 31st.
Yeah.
Raid.
But keep an eye open for that.
And I will be back Thursday with some art, and we might do something on the weekends if we're feeling for it.
Maybe, Phoebe, if you're feeling it, we could wrap up with Tarnished Twins again.
Tarnished Twins. Tarnished Twins. Tarnished Twins.
Tarnished Twins. It's something to think about, though. There's no pressure.
I clipped me beating the boss. Me being a monster.
Did you?
Yeah.
That was the craziest thing. That's like one of the craziest things I've ever seen. You gotta post the clip to the Discord later for anyone that wasn't there for that. Because it was stupid. It was stupid.
If you're subscribed to me, there is your raid message. If you are not subscribed, here is your raid message. I can't believe we went into an ad break and I didn't notice. That's okay. If you're not subscribed, I'm sorry. Please go ahead and copy those. Make sure to give Spiff a ton of love. Say hello. She's a good friend of the channel. And overall, just a really cool person. Really neat. I think she's neat. That one? I think she's neat. And we'll see you guys again Thursday. Thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.